What's going on, guys? It's your boy Anthony back with another edition of the Fourth Man. Sorry for the absence and the delay. Took a little bit of an excursion overseas and have been away from actually recording the episodes, but appreciate everyone that's rocking with us today. And at a really exciting time in the BIG3 season, missed a couple weeks in terms of being able to update you guys verbally on what's been going on with the league, but we had a great ball out session. Obviously, a couple of good weeks where we saw some teams do really well. Threes Company won a couple in a row. We saw Killer Threes win 3 in a row during that time span. Saw Bivouac win a couple of games for the first time since 2019. Almost did 3 in a row. Very close to doing so. But yeah, a lot's been going on. Obviously, we have an exciting week 7 coming up, essentially an extended playoff coming up. So going to bring a great episode and kind of bring everyone up to speed a little bit more on kind of the situation at hand, my thoughts really on everything that's been going on within the league, and then ultimately try to piece it all together, make sure that everyone's on the same page going into this in the playoff run. We also have a dope interview on the back end with one of the teams that will be playing tomorrow. In that extended playoff format, who kind of has a little bit of leverage, but we have one of the players from the teams on the back end. So make sure you guys stick around for that. Before we jump into anything, as always, make sure you're following the show at Fourth Man Pod on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok as well. You can also find the show on YouTube at youtube.com/fourthmanpod. And for those of you tuning in on Dash Radio in the Nothing But Net channel, 1, we appreciate the opportunity to be on this platform, but 2, thanks for everyone who is tuning in and listening to a little bit more hoops coverage throughout the summer. Obviously, there's been some great summer hoops with the addition of the OBL. TBT is doing some big things. And the BIG3, always doing great things in the summer, but always bringing that innovation at the best season yet. And now we get an extended playoff, which is pretty crazy. So let's kind of break down everything that's going on right now. Kind of a similar format as last year, where the bottom 4 teams are essentially getting dropped off. I think at this point, everyone has kind of seen, there was a rumor about Kaepernick investing. So I think it kind of alludes to everybody that there are some capital issues going on. Look, at the end of the day, guys, this is technically the 5th season, but the 6th, I guess it's technically the 5th season. Obviously, we had the COVID year. But at the end of the day, this is a startup sports league. So things are going to change on the fly. And there's going to, sometimes it's not always going to be easy to get to the road you want to and accomplish what you want to in the early going. There's a reason why there's 4 major leagues and there's a ton of, smaller leagues out there. And while they get publicity and people watch them, there's a reason why there's 4 major ones that people are kind of the monopolies of the sports world. So the BIG3 is no different. We're going through a little bit of growing pains. And I still don't think, especially with COVID, I think a lot of people go through growing pains and trying to readapt and readjust with everything. But I still think it's been a great season. And unfortunately, it's really tough to see, 4 teams go again, where I think there were some teams with slight bit of opportunity, which you always hate to count anybody out, especially, but in a league where point differential matters so crucially, I think there were teams that had a little bit, still of an edge and opportunity to potentially make that playoff run. So unfortunately, we did, Enemies, Triplets, Ball Hogs, and Bivouac. Their seasons have ended after 6 weeks. Triplets took a tough loss. Bivouac took a tough loss as well. And then Enemies, unfortunately, after a 2-1 start, they have dropped 3 in a row. Thought this was going to be a really good Enemies team. They got Elijah Stewart back last week, but just a little bit too late, and unfortunately. However, I think the team that you feel for the most a little bit is that it's got to be Bivouac. I mean, Bivouac, they were coming on strong. They've only lost by 11 points all year in their 4 losses. 3 games they lost by 3 this past week. They only lost by 2 points against the Killer 3 team that they were up against. So would have been a really interesting scenario if Bivouac had won that game. We had 2 more 3-3 teams rather than a 4-2 team and 2-4 team. But nonetheless, it is what it is. It is unfortunate. At the same time, however, it's a very opportune time for one, I think, us as viewers and fans to see kind of that extended playoff run where every game matters even more. It already matters so much in an 8-game season, but now that we really see these teams potentially in a spot where they're one and done for some of the teams, especially the 3-3 teams. So it's unfortunate. The good thing is there is going to be the All-Star game, which they did announce. So I think we'll still see guys like Gerald Green, Jody Meeks I think should probably be an All-Star within there. I mean, Corey Brewer's had a really good season, All-Star worthy. I don't know. Isaiah Austin, potential defensive player of the year. Maybe we see him in the All-Star. So we're going to be able to see essentially the All-Stars will be anybody that's not playing in the championship game, because I think the All-Star game is actually going to take place in Atlanta in State Farm Arena on August 21st, right before the championship game. So we'll get to see some guys. I think Gerald Green's a no-brainer for All-Star, probably Rookie of the Year, probably in the MVP conversation, although I don't think anyone's knocking off Kevin Murphy. But it is unfortunate to see that we won't see those 4 teams anymore. But it, again, makes a very interesting scenario as we go into week 7 with 8 teams remaining. There will be 2 teams eliminated. Essentially, the rundown is this. There's going to be 8 teams heading into week 7. 2 of those teams get the bye. So Three-Headed Monsters will, because they are top of the league, will get a bye and move on to week 8. Actually, Three-Headed Monsters already has secured and clinched their playoff spot, because the Big 3 is essentially saying you need at least 5 wins to get into the playoffs. Three-Headed Monsters has secured that. Their playoff spot being at the top of the standings. Essentially, next week they will be fighting for playoff position, and Kevin Murphy will be fighting for potentially the points record. He needs 25 points to break Joe Johnson's record back last year. So it's going to be a little bit tougher, but I think if anyone can do it, Kevin Murphy can definitely get it done in 1 game rather than 2. In terms of the other team that's going to get the bye, it's going to be Aliens. They did get essentially, they got the bye, but they also got a win. So they're technically 5-2 at this point. Essentially, the way the Big 3 laid it out is that they had the win over Trilogy, and Trilogy had the win over Killer Threes. So I guess that means Aliens has the edge over both of them. Not sure if I necessarily agree with that, but nonetheless, because Killer Threes actually had the better point differential, those teams were actually supposed to play each other, so we could have got a better understanding if the schedule had played out how it was supposed to. Nonetheless, it is what it is. Killer Threes is, going to be playing this week, and Aliens will get the pass and be able to fight for a playoff spot in week 8. They, unlike Three-Headed Monsters, aren't secured for a playoff spot. I think that mostly has to do with point differential and where they're at. I'm still trying to figure out, I guess Three-Headed Monsters automatically got the win this week, so that would make them 6-1. I guess 6-1, and Aliens 5-2, and everyone's 3-3 or 4-2 the rest of the way. But how it works is, so you have, again, it's like an extended playoff. So Three-Headed Monsters will be the 1 seed. Aliens will, it's an extended playoffs going into the playoffs. This is a weird way to work it out. One thing about the Big 3, you always get things that have never happened in the sports world before. And this, again, will be that same equation or situation. But I don't know, it's kind of fun in a way to see these teams, not only get a taste of like postseason action, but really just seeing how much they really care about winning and how much they really want it. So that's going to be really cool. So essentially, Three-Headed Monsters will have the 1 seed. Aliens will have the 2 seed heading into week 8. So what that means for the rest of the teams, there'll be 6 teams that played this week, with 4 of those teams advancing into week 8. And Three-Headed Monsters being the 1 seed will play the 6 seed. Aliens will play the 5 seed as the 2 seed, and then 3 and 4 seed will match up heading in there. I think most of that will be determined. The other 4 teams heading into week 8 will be determined on what happens this week and point differential. So all that being said, the 3 teams playing this week: Threes Company will play Killer Threes, Tri-State will play Power, Ghost Ballers will play Trilogy. I think essentially the way it is that all the 3-3 teams, it's either win or go home. So Threes Company, Tri-State, Power, and Ghost Ballers will all play each other. Not all play each other, excuse me. They'll all play in hopes of their season not being over, and it won't be as long as they win. Now, Killer Threes and Trilogy are in a little bit more of an interesting scenario, so it's a little bit, they don't necessarily, essentially they're both 4-2, so their season won't necessarily be over if they lose. Essentially, the way I look at it is Trilogy is in regardless at this point. Okay, and this is what we're doing on this episode. We're trying to figure out exactly, and maybe you guys can leave me your thoughts on what you think should happen or what the case might be. My understanding right now is, and how everything would make sense, is that point differential isn't exactly what matters when it comes to two teams that are tied with the same record, right? Because Aliens didn't get in off point differential. They got in based off a win over Trilogy, who Trilogy then got the win over the Killer 3. So it was more of like the superiority. Your win is more superior than your point differential, right? So the way I think it would make sense is that, let's say that, like, the way I think it makes sense is that Trilogy is in regardless, right? They win and they're moving on because they have 5 wins. They lose, and, well, maybe not regardless. Okay, this is what we're trying to figure out. So my thought is that if Killer 3s and Trilogy both loses, Trilogy is in because Trilogy got the win over Killer 3s, right? If Killer 3s wins and Trilogy loses, I guess that would make Killer 3s in. But it would also mean there would still be another team that would need to be in. So Trilogy would be in regardless, right? Because the way I'm looking at it is Tri-State or Power, one of them are going home. That's one. That's one of the 4 teams, right? And then from the other games, you're going to get 2 more winners. That's 3 teams. Then you're going to have a 4th team. So so essentially that's how it's going to work. Let's say that Trilogy and Killer 3s both loses. I would think that Trilogy is going to get to go on and Killer 3s would go home because they have the win over Killer 3s. It's not about point differential because Killer 3s has the best point differential in the league outside of Three-Headed Monsters, I believe. But if Killer 3s beats Three's Company and Ghost Ballers beats Trilogy, then it would be Killer 3s, one of the Tri-State or Power teams, Ghost Ballers, and then still Trilogy because they would still have the better record over Three's Company. They'd have a better record over Three's Company or the loser of Tri-State Power. So at this point, it looks like Trilogy is a lock. I'm trying to think if there's one way that they wouldn't get in. I mean, at what point? Because if Trilogy loses, and let's say no, I mean, there's literally no way that they couldn't get in at this point, unless they do count point differential. So hopefully this makes sense. Let me break it down and clarify because I'm kind of going through the same thoughts, like kind of throughout the weekend and currently right now trying to solve it with you guys. So let's clarify real quickly. There's Three's Company and Killer 3s, Tri-State and Power, Ghost Ballers and Trilogy. Three's Company and Killer 3s will be the first game, with Three's Company being 3-3 and Killer 3s being 4-2. Tri-State and Power are both 3-3, and then Ghost Ballers is 3-3. Trilogy is 4-2. Tri-State and Power, one of them is going to win and move on. One of them is going to go home. That's an easy one, right? Three's Company and Killer 3s. Three's Company, if they win, they will move on because that would only make sense. Killer 3s would be in a holding block right there, being at 4-3. But if Killer 3s wins, they would automatically move on. Same situation for Trilogy and Ghost Baller. If Trilogy won, they would automatically move on. Ghost Ballers would go home. But if Ghost Ballers win, it would only make sense for them to move on as well. And Trilogy, I think, would move on either way. It's based off how the scenario is. So, yeah, literally the 3-3 teams, if they win, they're probably moving on. That's the whole point of this scenario right now. And if they lose, they're going home. Killer 3s and Trilogy, if they win, they're into week 8. And if Killer 3s, so the only way really Killer 3s can't get in is if they lose and Trilogy loses. Let's put it that way. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. I'm really trying to break it down as granular as I possibly can. In terms of seeding, I have no idea how that's going to look. I would imagine that if Killer 3s and Trilogy wins, they're probably going to be the 3 and 4 seed and probably end up matching up again, where we're going to get a rematch of the game from earlier this year. If Killer 3s loses and Trilogy wins, maybe we see that shake up a little bit. Now, in terms of the matchups, very interesting, right? Because you're getting Three's Company and Killer 3s, 2 of the hottest teams in the league. Three's Company has essentially found this new identity or maybe this realization where it's like, hey, Michael Beasley doesn't need to take every single shot and win us every single game just by his scoring prowess. He just needs to be the center focal point and be able to run the show. So if he's got a shot, let him take the shot. But hey, be looking for a little bit more cuts, off ball screens where guys are getting open, and just be the facilitator on that. And that has worked to perfection. They have blown out the past 2 teams they've played because of this strategy where, they killed Ball Hawks. Ball Hawks almost came back. So I guess I didn't blow them out, but I should say in the first half, it has worked to perfection, blowing out Ball Hawks in the first half, week prior, blowing out Ghost Ballers in the first half, essentially taking them out of it. So, and on the flip side, Killer Threes, hey, they're doing what they do. They're being scrappy. They're fighting to get their wins, and they did that last week against Bivouac without their coach, and a really impressive win where Bivouac got off to a good start. They played great collectively as a team. They dared Frank Nitti to shoot, and Frank said, "Okay, I'm gonna shoot," and made a shot. So kudos to Killer Threes, essentially knocking Bivouac out of any kind of fight to come back from an 0-3 start. So that one's going to be pretty interesting. I feel like it's tough because on paper, I've said all year that I think Threes Company is going to be the best team. I thought they're going to be the best team. They've looked like how I thought they should have all year. And when they're hitting on cylinders, they are a really good team. You know, having Michael Beasley, Julian Wright's come on strong. Rio's done his thing like we thought he would. Killer Threes is a scrappy, hard-nosed team that probably plays better team ball than anybody else in the league. There's no focal point, despite Dante Green being like one of the better players in this league. So it's really tough for me to say. A part of me thinks that Threes Company gets it done, but I feel like every time I doubt Killer Threes, they end up winning. So I'm just going to stick with my gut. I'm going to say Threes Company gets the win, but I think Killer Threes is still going to get in because I think Trilogy is going to beat Ghost Ballers. Trilogy is just a really good team. Like the fact that they're in this scenario is kind of baffling to me. One, they're they're the reigning champions, and Ghost Ballers is a really good team too. Don't get me wrong, but I think they've ran into some scenarios where they put themselves in a hole and it's been hard to dig out of. And I just don't know if Trilogy is going to be the best matchup for them. Now, Ghost Ballers did have a huge lead over Trilogy's before a 22-5 run from Trilogy, ultimately to winning the game. I don't know if Trilogy gets in that hole again. That's kind of where I said it right now. I just don't know if Trilogy is going to get back in that hole against Ghost Ballers and put themselves with their backs against the walls, have to come back and win. It's possible, but I just don't know if that happens. I think Trilogy ultimately finds a way to get to week 8 to compete for another playoff spot and defend their title. That's really how I look at it. Tri-State and Power is an interesting one. You know, Tri-State's dropped a couple after a 3-1 start. Power's been kind of a roller coaster of emotions up and down, but they beat a really good Aliens team last week. Jason Richardson probably should be talked a little bit more about being in the MVP conversation, and we just haven't done that. I feel like as a BIG3 community, but he's had really good games. The hope is that they have Larry Sanders back. I think that ultimately they couldn't stop Kevin Murphy, one, because no one in the league has done so, but two, if you had a little bit more of a paint presence, maybe he doesn't drive to the paint as much. And I think they were missing Larry Sanders. DeJuan Summers probably played his worst game of the season there. So it's tough. On the flip side, Power, they kind of took the similar route as Threes Company, where they're like, hey, our best scorer, arguably our best player in Glenn Rice, he's going to be the focal point, but he's going to be looking to pass the ball and facilitate when necessary. I think that ultimately led them to a win against Aliens. On top of that, playing really good defense, being able to guard the different actions and back cuts that Aliens likes to run and their style of play. So it's really a toss up there. Tri-State was the #1 seed last year. Power is a team that doesn't really miss the playoffs, and they've never had a losing record. So it's really hard for me to say. I kind of think that changes. I think Tri-State's going to get it done. I think stopping Jason Richardson is going to be really tough. DeJuan Summers is a tough cover. And they have Larry Sanders, I should say this. They have Larry Sanders. It's hard for me to think that Tri-State doesn't win this game more so than I think Power loses this one, as disciplined as I think they are. So I'm going to go, those are my picks. Threes Company, Tri-State, Trilogy. Could definitely be completely wrong, get all those wrong, and every other team wins. This is how tight and competitive the league is this year. So should be interesting. You know, a lot on the line here. And this is only to get to week 8. This is the crazy part. This is only to get to week 8. So there's going to be 8 teams this week. Week 8 is going to feature 6 teams. And then from those 6 teams, we're going to have 4 teams heading into the playoffs, and then 2 teams in the championship, and then 1 winner. This this is nuts. Like, I kind of love this. It's almost like a kind of a tournament style in a sense that we like a March Madness or TBT tournament. So this should be really interesting. I'm excited to see who steps up. And, Three-Headed Monsters, they don't have to play this week. Aliens don't have to play this week. Three-Headed Monsters is already a shoo-in to get into the playoffs, but they're going to be fighting for that number 1 seed to, try to finally capture a title. This really looks like this could be the year. I wonder if Jonathan Simmons comes back at any point. He tweaked his ankle. I'm just wondering if he comes back or they stick with Moon, who's got that playoff experience. Rashard Lewis came back, so that was good to see. Quincy Miller's been a revelation for them, so that's interesting. And I think for Aliens, I'm curious to see how, their season ends, and if they make the playoffs, they get off to the 4-1 start, beat a really good Trilogy team, fall last week to Power, and arguably Bullet's best game. Deshaun Stevens has been incredible. I think my concern right now has been that the shooting slump of Carlos Las Manas has hurt them a little bit. I think they're going to need Carlos to be more of a scoring prowess, floor spacer, alongside being, kind of the second facilitator for them. Because I think when he's on, they're a really hard team to beat. But he's just having a tough time finding his shot. Here lately, I think Ivashev does a little bit of everything, kind of just whatever you need him to do. And I think he's filled that role nicely. I think this is the team that plays hard, hustles hard, rebounds hard, looks for the open man, but they need Las Manas to be a little bit more on. They need him to be a threat from the outside and kind of get to the cup like, he can. So interested to see how those teams play out. And as a top 2 seeds, they're going to have a little bit of a target on their back. But I think most importantly are the 3 games tomorrow. And I'm so excited to see how those turn out. I'm going to be locked in and tuned in to see how those goes. And, at the same time too, we're still looking to see who could be some all-stars. I think there's a lot of different all-stars from these games. And I think that's going to be really fun to see different guys, playing with each other from different teams, or maybe guys that have played with each other in the past. I don't know how the all-star format's going to be, but that's going to be super sick. So if there's any questions on the formats of the last 2 weeks, heading into the playoffs, comment below, whether this is social media or on YouTube. I guess YouTube is part of social media, but comment below. We'll love to brainstorm with you or try to answer any questions as best as I can. This is the best as I understand it. And as it continues to trickle along, I'll try to put out information on Twitter and Instagram to make sure that everyone's caught up to speed on maybe some of the little details that aren't being discussed. So that's kind of a preview of what to expect this week. A lot's gone on. I feel like the 2 weeks I didn't have an episode, we ended up, missing a lot, but at the same time, it all kind of came together because now we're at a point where it's almost a new chapter in the season. And so really excited to see how that turns out, and hope you guys are tuning in. And, for us at the Fourth Man, the goal is to be at the championship game. It might just be as a spectator, but we're going to make it there. We're really close to State Farm Arena in comparison to Chicago and Dallas. So the idea is to be there on that Sunday and watch the All-Star game and see who's crowned the Season 5 champion. And this is an exciting time. This extended playoffs, I don't know if we've ever gotten this in this league or anything like it. We've had some battles down to the end of the regular season, but this is going to be fun. I feel for some of the teams that maybe have worse records and didn't get to play the teams that maybe were struggling a little bit, like the Ball Hogs or the Triplets without Joe, or whatever. I mean, I'm not saying those aren't tough teams, but at the same time, just be able to play different teams rather than rematch against teams that you've already played. So I feel for that a little bit, but again, startup league, sometimes you have to adjust on the fly. I think maybe the league communicate a little bit better. I think for them, this wasn't an expectation, but maybe just communicate a little bit more so beforehand, even at the beginning of the season. Hey, this is the directions that things could go if everything doesn't align exactly how that we have planned for it to go this season. I think communication is just good, and I think maybe there's a lack of that at points in times. Being a big league and trying not to scare everybody. But I bring all that up because it does look like Joe Johnson's time with the Big 3 is over. I hope that the relationship is rekindled from my understanding and from, what we've kind of heard through the grapevine is that, yes, the league announced that he retired, but I think there was a little bit of unhappiness with some of the miscommunication and kind of what was going on. I think they could have been a little bit, more direct with him. You've seen as he's kind of the face of the league, the two-time MVP. Maybe, I guess, from my understanding, again, I don't know any of this. I don't know either of their sides. I haven't spoken to any representatives from the Big Three or Joe Johnson or any of his representatives. This is just how I'm understanding it. And I think there was a little lack of communication within there that Joe wasn't too happy about, and ultimately decided, I've done enough in this league. I've won a championship. I've won MVPs. I've won scoring titles. I've set records, and this is my time. So, I would hope, cross my fingers, that they could rekindle that relationship and have Joe back. But if not, I just want to say a kudos and shout out to Joe Johnson. He's really made this league very exciting and fun. And I think as this league continues to grow, I think we'll look back on the years that we had, arguably the greatest player, the GOAT of the Big Three playing and just dominating the league. So shout out to him. Hope everything goes well with the yoga studio, and definitely going to be watching from afar what Joe Johnson's doing. All right. That being said, that's the end of this half of the episode. I hope I didn't confuse anybody too much. Hope everyone's really geared up and amped for this extended playoff and the week 7 of the Big Three. Appreciate everyone who's tuned into this half of the episode. Make sure you tune in to our interview on the back end. If you probably already know who the interview is with at this point, but we got Killer Three's Dominique Johnson on the show to kind of talk about the team, his first year in the Big Three, as well as what to expect heading into this playoff experience with his guys. So thank you again. Make sure you guys are following on social media at Fourth Man Pod, subscribed on YouTube, and ringing the notification bell for all the new episodes, as well as tuning in on Dash Radio to Nothing But Net channel if you don't necessarily have the other resources to be able to listen. Thank you again to those tuning in, and let's get to our interview with Dominique Johnson. Cool. So today on the show, we're excited to welcome on Killer Three's first-round pick and longtime professional hooper, Dominique Johnson. Again, thanks for the time. Welcome to the show. And do people call you Dom? Do they call you DJ? You just straight up go by Dominique? What's the best way to address you?
Man, there's like so many nicknames. They call me Dom, Neek, DJ, just to keep it simple. Yeah.
All right, cool. I've been calling you Dom through our back and forth text. I'm like, man, what if he doesn't even go by that? So I'm glad that people do call you that. Cool. Well, again, welcome to the show. I'm excited to have you on. And first and foremost, let me say congrats to being drafted into the Big Three. It's kind of a prestigious draft class in the sense of there's 100, 150 people that are in this draft pool, but only 20 to 25 people get selected, through over the course of the different years they've had it, whether they've had 6 players or 5 players. So congrats to that. And, it's been a hell of a first season. As I told you a little bit, typically how I do this is I'll start with kind of the journey leading up to the Big Three and kind of paraphrase it. But I really want to start with your Big Three career and trickle our way down into your journey, like I said. And, it's pretty interesting. Most of the time I'm doing a lot of research on the guys I'm bringing on here because not a lot of the names I know necessarily right off the jump when they joined the Big Three. But for you, we had Dante on the show. Dante's, a previous guest that's been on the show a couple of times, and he was on our draft stream, and he was hyping you up big time. He's talking about Rookie of the Year. We got our guy. He's really hyping you up. What is your relationship with your co-captain and teammate, Dante Green?
So Tay and I, well, first off, let's backtrack with the draft process because I didn't know that the draft pool was that big, right? So when I went to the combine, I'm thinking, okay, these are the players that are in the draft. However, once when the combine was over with, you saw the list of names and stuff like that. I'm like, here we go again. I gotta try to prove myself. Like, hopefully I did enough, right? And lo and behold, like it paid off. But once when I got drafted, I had called Tay. I was like, yo, is this what the NBA draft thing was like? Because I'm looking at these names and I'm like, oh yeah, no, this ain't gonna happen. Like, this is, what I'm saying? Like, I'm already I'm behind the 8 ball. So, like I said, it happened. And but Tay and I, our relationship goes back to Sacramento.
Okay.
I, 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 met him when I was left college, 2010. and getting ready for the NBA, for me to chase my dreams. And that's how Tay and I met. And we've always stayed connected.
Man, that's cool. They always say, or the guests I have on here always say, like for the pros and like the Hooper Circle, it's such a tight knit brotherhood. So that's cool that you guys have been able to stay connected
everybody
for such
knows
a long time.
Everybody knows everybody, or knows somebody that knows somebody.
Right. Or you've heard of that guy before somewhere, or you played against him somewhere. Man, that's crazy. Small world. So typically for you, you're either gearing up to play overseas, or you're already overseas playing as a player who's played overseas for a long time. Most recently, you were playing in Italy. Just give me a little bit of an understanding of like your summer this year in comparison to last summer. I mean, obviously you're getting to spend a lot more time with family. You're getting to play stateside, and your family's getting to see you play. And you're spending time in Dallas, and you found one that's been in California, you've been in Michigan. So describe to me this summer a little bit in comparison to others.
This summer has been probably one of the best summers for me. I mean, I've been playing overseas for the past 10 plus years. Like you said, currently in Italy. But this summer, with the BIG3 opportunity, it just gave me a chance to play here, my family and stuff, being able to come to the games, watching the games at a reasonable time. I'm sure you heard this story similar with Stacy when he was on the podcast as well. So that part right there has been like a dream come true. And then the two cities that we chose to play in was Chicago and Dallas. So Chicago, I'm from Detroit, so that's 4 hours away. So I had a lot of family there. Dallas, and then at the arena that we're playing in is where I first started my professional journey with the Texas Legends. Right. So just walking back into the arena, walking in the tunnel, looking at the locker rooms and stuff like that, it was just all nostalgic. But to sum it up, man, it's just been a blessing.
Man, that's crazy. And it's something that we hear a lot on the show, but it never gets old, because it's truly like, it's cool to see like people get to play in front of their kids and be around family. Like you guys work so hard and like adapting these new environments to play overseas, and for you guys to be able to play stateside and not only like showcase your game, but play on a big platform is really what I enjoy about the league. Because there's a lot of guys that are really good that we don't get to that, and probably a lot of guys we don't know about that are really good. So having this platform or this platform for you guys is really cool. The BIG3 opportunity. So you've known Tay for a long time. On the draft show, he kind of broke the news that they were going to take you. We also had some guys from Ghost Ballers who said they were looking at you, and we're hoping that you would fall to them later in the draft, but that didn't necessarily happen. Dante mentioned that he told you that you need to come home from Italy, enter your name into the draft, and we're going to try to get you if nobody else selects you. And his story is that you were at the combine killing it, because I guess Frank didn't know you very well. Frank said he saw you early.
Frank and I have been knowing each other since 2013. Like the backstory to that, I was supposed to play with them. I think I was supposed to play last year, but I wasn't in the draft pool. I wasn't in the draft pool. So when they hit me, I talked to somebody about like flights and all this stuff. And then they called me back and was like, yo, like, are you in the draft pool? I'm like, I think so. Because at the time, like I had signed this contract with T. Scott, like right before COVID hit. And I thought the contract was good, so I never thought anything about it. Lo and behold, I wasn't in the draft pool, so I couldn't play. So, that stopped me. But also, like, I've been asked to play in the BIG3 since it started. But for me, we're playing 8 to 10 months overseas every year and going into the postseason. The summers are just for my wife and I, where we go and travel and do what we need to do. So this year was a little bit different. Like I said, I talked to Tay. Our season ended early in Italy. So I was like, yo, I'm coming home, So I did that, and I went straight to the combine. And, that was that.
Yeah, that's cool. And what Dante was saying is that you're going crazy at the combine. Frank had seen enough as the representative of Killer Threes, and they had told you to sit down, but you kept going. You kept going out there doing your thing.
I didn't want to sit down, man, because like, when you're around the NBA personnel like this, and a lot of people don't like know me, but I was just trying to put a face to the name. You know what I'm saying? That was it. I knew the right time to stop, and I just trusted my instincts on that part. And it worked out. But yeah, they were trying to, yeah, they was like, yo, like, you got to sit down. Like, you have to sit down.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it was like,
Is a part of it too, like the competitive edge and just like a point to prove like, yeah, you've heard the name. This is what I've done overseas. Here it is in the
yeah.
moment.
Well, the other thing was just playing with your peers, right? You
Sure.
know, a few of my guys or whatever that were, you know, in the LA area where we work out, you know, being there with them, playing with, you know what I'm saying, playing with them and
Sure.
stuff like that for like the first time, like on a stage like that. Um, that was, you know what I'm saying, that was nice. You got Dr. J on the sideline and stuff like that, watching you, you know what I'm saying, stuff like that, looking at the history, him and George Gervin, you know, just sitting there talking, like that was like, nah, I gotta keep playing. You know what I'm saying? Like,
That's cool. No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
yeah.
I forget how many legends are in the building sometimes. So
Yeah, and it's hard to like, I've been around a lot of people, man. But
sure.
it's like, you know, like I've been starstruck probably twice. That was like with Penny Hardaway, and then you see Dr. J.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, yo, like that's literally, you know, him. You know, you sitting there talking to him and stuff like that. So like that was a real dope experience.
Man, that's really cool. So you were actually got to be a part of another cool experience when the D League started back up. You were part of the inaugural draft. You got drafted in the 3rd round.
Mhm.
Going back to draft night of the Big Three, you get a chance to once again be in a draft, but this time you get to go 1st round.
Yeah.
Is it for you? Is it like, you know, what's kind of your reaction? You know, is it ever like, does it ever like not, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. Is it like, is it always a good feeling to be like getting picked and even earlier this time around? I mean, what was this draft experience like for you in the Big Three?
I mean, honestly, so like when people look at my school or they ask me what school I went to, because everybody immediately believed like I went Division I, right? I didn't go D1, D2, D3. I went to an NAIA school, right? Well, it was an NAIA school at the time, Azusa Pacific University.
Mm-hmm.
So just knowing where I come from, looking at the road and stuff that I've like paid for myself, it's never been like an easy battle. So getting drafted, a lot of people was just like, damn, like, congratulations, man. Like, you know, like you made it, this and that. And I'm like, dude, I've been playing for 10 plus years.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I understand. And then I had to like sit back and think like how important that opportunity was. And then just being at home and then looking at the list of players who I were, you know what I'm saying, who I was included with. And I got picked out of those 120 players. So that made me feel good in a way, but it also like put a target on your back because after that first week, nobody's guaranteed. Like the players that are drafted, they're not guaranteed. So you can have a bad week and you can get cut.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it was just like, it just motivated me a little bit more to, you know what I'm saying, to prove like I belong here. And that's all I'm trying to do. And that's for all
Yeah.
the other NAIA products who are coming behind me to let, you know what I'm saying, like there are players that come from that conference.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to like kind of what we were saying before is that there's a lot of really good basketball players, a lot of good hoopers out there, and some we might never know their name or know what they've done, but they're
Yeah.
really good. And so like you're definitely like paving that way, and being able to play on a big platform and say, hey, like doesn't matter where you come from, it's like what you do throughout the journey to be able to get there. So that's really dope. And what I was trying to, you know, kind of preface at the beginning too, like it goes back to there's only 22 guys that get selected. So you're getting selected in front of a lot of people that one maybe have played in the league before, have had success in the league, not just the Big Three league, but the NBA as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's a huge testament to what you were able to do, and what you're able to show at the combine. And I think you proved your worth playing in the Big Three. I think it started from day one when you came out swinging. You guys played ball hogs. You guys won 50-33 in that first game. So won by 17. But not only that, you had the most points in the game, scoring 16 points. You showed your playmaking ability coming off the bench, knocked down like 4 threes. First and foremost, were there any adjustments you felt like you had to make in the Big Three in comparison to playing 5-on-5?
No, because I mean, I think people don't understand, like when you're playing in Europe, there's a lot of 3-on-3 basketball being played like in practices, right? Because they want to break down the plays. So when it's 3-on-3, you get to see the floor more, right? So it's way more space than you think, right? Obviously you're imagining those other 2 players on the floor or the other 4, but I mean, my number one thing here with this team is just to be a floor spacer. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know my role. You know, yeah, I can play make and stuff like that as well when we need it. But however, with Frank and Dante going downhill, there's no help on my side. You know what I'm saying? So that's my job. I have to knock down that open three. And that's what I've been, you know, so that's what I had to do my whole career. So there's really no adjustments. And we have a selfless team. Like, nobody's selfish on our team. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, we played this last game without our coach, and Tay and I was on the bench. We was looking at each other like, yo, are you gonna go in? Like, do we need to go in? Like, what do we need to, like, we didn't know. And then it was like, when it was 48-49, it was like, yo, get in the game. You know what I'm saying? So that's how our team is. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't matter who gets the glory. We just want to win.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I think that goes back to the foundation of Frank, Dante, and Josh, who have been the captains there for a long time. Like, I think within the Big Three community, or at least on this show, we've talked a lot about the culture of power and what they've been able to establish. But
yeah,
you know, I think this is really the first time, I think in depth, we're really talking about the culture of what Killer Threes has created. And I think you talking about the selflessness and just how the team operates goes to, you know, kind of put a testimonial to what they've said there. So that's crazy. And it really, I think it just really gives other people within the Big Three community, especially people that are just tuning in for the first time this year, like, this is a team that you can never count out, which we saw last week, which we saw in the win over Ghost Ballers as well. So it's pretty crazy. And it's pretty crazy too, because I don't know if everyone thought that way necessarily when you guys win the first game. You guys dropped weeks 2 and 3. But you guys bounced back and won 3 straight. What was the conversation after going down 1-2? Because I know for this Killer Threes team, this is a team, it's a core, I should say, that's been to the title in 2019. They went down 1-2 last year and then won out, but it wasn't enough. So what was the conversation like this year when you guys are down 1-2, or when your record's 1-2?
Honestly, like, my whole viewpoint on that, and I told them that it was just like, if we were ever going to lose a game, it was better to lose those games in the beginning, because it's going to teach you a lot, right? So in the end, or when it gets to like crunch time, like where we're in now, you know how to win those type of games. You know how to respond now because you've already been through it. So those losses was just teaching points. You know what I'm saying? Like, there was no panic. We were more so angry at ourselves for dropping those games. But now you see, when in late game situations, we're able to execute and come out with the win and stuff like that. So the best thing about those losses were we didn't hit our peak early, right?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, now we're starting to hit that incline, and is in the right direction, so we can carry that momentum right into this game this weekend. So that's pretty much what it was. Like, it wasn't, you know, we can't do this, we can't do that. Like, it's just, we know what we have to do now.
Yeah. And you guys, like, that's such a good point too, because like, it kind of showcased this week when you guys are in a tough spot. You're playing a team that's probably needs to win more than you guys. Like, you guys are in a really good spot regardless of what happens this weekend. But for them, they really needed the win, and now, you know, their season's kind of done. But you guys face a tough Bivouac team. I think ultimately the second half propelled you guys when you guys, I think you outscored them 32-24 in the second half. You guys did that with no Oak, you know, did that from a deficit. I think Bivouac collectively as a team played their best in terms of just the whole team contributing. But what was kind of the game plan going against Bivouac, and how did you individually feel like you guys executed that?
I mean, first off, people don't understand how tough Bivouac is, right? So when you look at those 4 losses that they had, or that they have, they lost them by a total of 11 points.
Yeah, that's
so nuts. It's like, when you look at, you know, and then when you look at the point differential, they're right up there with some of the teams that's in the top, right? Because it's 47, 48, 49, you know, it's like 1 possession games. So, I mean, the game plan, man, it was just to get downhill. You know, get downhill, stay the course. They're going to make their runs. You know what I'm saying? Just like anybody, we're all professionals here. So we're going to make shots. But it was just stay the course, man. Like you saw, we was down 11-2. Nobody panicked, call timeout, regroup. You know what I'm saying? Talk it over in the huddle, and then we'll figure it out.
Yeah, 100%. I think that showcase. I was wondering the dynamic of, like, so Coach Oak doesn't miss a lot of games, but now Frank's kind of playing as a player captain.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah,
I'm wondering the dynamic of like, you know, because you're thinking about, I'm sure from Frank's perspective, he's thinking like, okay, got to play well, but I also think about the coaching responsibilities and when am I supposed to bring the fire and substitute
yeah.
people in. Do you feel like that had any effect maybe like in the early going of like just kind of settling in as you
I
guys are
think
getting going? Or
I think it was more so, man. It was all five of us collectively. You know what I'm saying, coaching and just being locked in on the game, because
that's
there
cool.
was a time or a possession when the ball went off of Drill Green's head on the sideline. And you know, Tan, I was on the sideline, yo, challenge that. I'm like, take that hit off Drill's head. You know, and you look at the score, it was 36 to like 37. So it was like that was a key possession. We got that. You know what I'm saying? We used to bring the fires and stuff in both halves. We were successful in all of them. You know what I'm saying? So, and then we got into the bonus at the right time and stuff like that. So everybody was locked in, you know what I'm saying? They said what they saw. KJ came in and provided a huge boost for us. He's finally starting to settle in. You know, him and I got a good pick and roll, got him, you know what I'm saying, for a dunk and stuff like that. So it's just, we're so happy to see each other succeed that we don't care about the individual type of success, you know what I'm saying? Because at the end, you saw us in a circle and stuff like that. So, and that was big of Dante staying out. He was our lead scorer.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. I like the epitome of the team is like everything you want to see from like every team. So that's awesome to hear. And like, I think a key point you mentioned was like, you guys actually use both bring the fires, but for whatever reason, like teams are not utilizing both those bring the fires. Cause like,
but you have to be strategic with it, man, because
for sure.
Well, first of all, you only get 1.5, right? But you just got to know when to use it,
you
know, because at the end of the day, it's still a 4-quarter game.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's still a 4-quarter game. So it's knowing the matchups. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a chess game. It's a game within itself. So and we're all trying to do that collectively, man, and figure it out together.
I just feel like not a lot of teams are using it in the first half, almost as if they're like scared that they only have one. So maybe that needs to be reiterated, or they're just like forgetting about it. And they're like, oh man, it's halftime, you know, like whatever the case might be. But that was like good job by you players to like recognize that and be like, let's use this now. It's a good matchup for us. You get another one in the second half.
We were locked in on that, man. Like it was, we knew what we had to do. You know what I'm saying? Like we used everything at the right time and stuff like that. So after the game, we never looked back. It was like, damn, why did we do that? Everything was
cool.
Like, it fell in place.
So, and also, are you accustomed to hitting game winners? I mean, you've done that 2 weeks in a row. People say the 3-point free throw is a lot tougher of a shot than it looks. You feel that way, or?
Because you know what? I missed the first one. Right? I missed the first one. I was very pissed about that because, and I told him, I said, yo, like I can't hit the easy ones, right? Like,
yeah, you're hitting all the tough shots, but the wide open ones is like
I can't hit the easy ones, and because the first one, it felt like I threw a pumpkin at the backboard when I took my first shot of the game. I was just wide open, but no, man, I think playing overseas, you know, they put the ball in your hands a lot, especially in those late time situations. And I've been trusted enough to make the right play, not necessarily the shot, but I've been trusted to make the right play. So that last play wasn't for me to shoot the ball. It was like the way I drew the play up was for Frank to just get downhill and just make a play. Because when we played Ghost Ballers, we were down by 2.
Right.
Oak put me in the game to hit the 3. Now, obviously, they didn't help off of me. Dante went back door, got an and 1 game over. So now this game is kind of like the same scenario, but it's just like, Frank, just get downhill, make a play, and we'll live with it. You know, if we need to get a stop, we'll get a stop. That's how it was. For some reason, he helped. Frank made the right play. I shot it, got fouled. There you go.
Crazy. That's awesome. And a big shot it was, especially like the last minute adjustment that the Big 3 is making this week. So there's 8 teams left this week, 6 teams left for week 8. 2 teams already have gone through to week 8. one team's already got a playoff spot clinched and in the playoffs. So, this is kind of the reality of a startup league. Things change on the fly. There's adjustments being made. Maybe a little bit better communication could probably be put in there. At least that's what it feels like from the outside perspective. But nonetheless, it is what it is. Okay, so you guys are going in. A little bit of an extended playoffs. You guys are playing a very hot Threes Company team who, like yourselves, have put themselves in a good position for the most part. But more so, you guys, I think you guys, even if you lose, if Trilogy wins, you're going to be able to move on to week 8 and fight for that playoff spot. Whereas for them, it's either they win or they go home. First off, how are you guys feeling about the adjustment of the schedule? And second off, what's kind of the takeaways when going up against kind of this, like, I don't want to say new look Threes Company team, but like different style of play Threes Company's team than we saw from earlier in the year?
I mean, man, to be honest with you, once when we saw the adjustments and stuff that was being made, we're not even thinking about next week. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't just jump over what, who you have to play. You know what I'm saying? We're not thinking about like, okay, we're safe or anything like that. This is a playoff game. Like, win or you go home. You know what I'm saying? Because we win, that's a better seed. Now, obviously, we were matched up against the Aliens, 4-2, which is going to be a hell of a matchup.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying? And that could have really propelled us to that second position or whatever. I don't know what could have happened with Three-Headed Monsters. I don't know. But we were looking forward to that. However, things change, right? So if anything that I know how to do, especially with playing overseas, is just to adjust and adapt. So now it's time to play Threes Company and lock in on their personnel and do what we need to do. We're not worried about if such and such win or lose. Like, we're not looking at the points and all the other stuff. Like, win our game, take care of our business, and we move on. That's the only mindset that we have.
Man, yeah, that's a good point. Like you said, you control what you can control at the end of the day. I was excited for that Aliens matchup because of one, you guys are both 4-2, but I'm always like interested because a lot of guys have played overseas. It's like we're calling the Aliens, or like I think the outside world is calling the Aliens like the European team. I don't know what you guys are calling them in the inner circle, but for a lot of you guys, like, well, we're essentially European. We've been playing our whole career over there professionally, so it's not anything unexpected. They're doing a good job at executing, and they did a good job winning games early on. But I'm interested to see like how different people's journeys, like yourself, or like Dante who's played overseas, or Frank who's played overseas, adjusts or like understands, maybe what they're doing in terms of like different actions or plays are running. So that would have been an interesting matchup.
I understand every action that they're running. It's, what I'm saying, they've mastered the 3-on-3 game, right? The ball movement, the player movement, just the, making the right reads and stuff like that. You just got to make or miss the shot.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's a great team. They drafted well. And hence the reason why they're 4-2.
Yeah. Hopefully that's the matchup we get in week 8, but we won't worry about that. Like you said, worry about Threes Company and
for sure.
Kind of the new look style. Like I'm telling, like it just seems like they have adjusted for the better. I feel like Bees was coming out shooting a lot of shots, and the past 2 weeks he's been kind of what you told Frank, just go make a play, and he's been a great facilitator, and they've won a lot of games, and they've been up big. So they're obviously going through a tough matchup with you guys. So I'm very interested to see how that is. The other thing I'd love to know is, as you played with these guys through 6 weeks, what have you learned about this team that you like and makes you confident that you guys can get, into the playoffs and have a nice little run?
Everybody just wants to win. That's the main thing. We stay in communication throughout the week. That's huge. You have a short practice window. You know what I'm saying? And then given people's schedules and stuff like that, like we try to make it work the best way we can. But like I said, man, go back from the beginning when we talked, like everyone's just selfless. That's the main thing. Don't care who do it, just get it done. And as long as we have more points than the other team, that's the only thing that matters, man. Nothing else matters. And we hold each other accountable.
100%.
That's the other thing too, because a lot of times you can't talk to people, but you can talk, like we can talk to each other.
Yeah.
So that's the most important part. You know what I'm saying? Nobody takes it personal or anything like that. So that takes you a long way, especially in those crunch time moments.
And the importance of like staying in contact throughout the week. I think that's huge. I don't know if every team is doing that.
Yeah.
But I know like when we first started watching the league, that wasn't always the case. So that's cool that you guys are doing that. And
Yeah.
I just love the camaraderie of you guys. So best of luck to you guys on Saturday. Should be a fun matchup against Three's Company. Before we sign off here, I want to go backwards a little bit. I was talking about the journey to get to the Big Three. Let me break down your resume, make sure I have everything right. You played at Azusa Pacific when you guys were NAIA, now D2.
Yeah.
Played in the D League from 2010 to 2013. And you've pretty much been all over Europe, playing in Israel, Poland, Turkey, Italy, Lebanon, France, and then you played in Mexico, which is here in North America.
Germany.
Okay, so I did miss a couple.
Yeah, Germany.
Pretty crazy journey for you so far. I would love to. I think first, do you have any craziest stories playing overseas in terms of like? I want to hear two if you have them. The best time you've had and the most challenging time you've had playing overseas.
All right, I'll go to the most challenging time that I had my second year when I was in Poland. I didn't let my wife, she was my fiance at the time, I didn't let her come over. And she was wondering why. And I kept trying to explain it to her, but explaining and like the pictures and stuff wouldn't do it justice, right? So that was like my biggest test of my overseas career, to be honest. I went there to play a small city called Trilogy, Poland. The team is no longer existent now. It's actually, I didn't put that in a book, but I will down the line in another one. But no, man, as I went to my apartment, you know, when you go overseas, you get a car, you usually get like a decent apartment, you know what I'm saying, stuff like that. I didn't have a car. The budget was low with the team. Just making $3,500 a month. Went into my apartment, and as I'm, checking everything, I'm like, damn, something's missing. And I was talking to my father, and I couldn't figure it out. It was like a week and a half later. I called him back. I said, man, I don't have a sink in my bathroom. Right? So
Whoa.
Just like as a habit, I was brushing my teeth in the kitchen sink. Right? Like there was no sink in my bathroom. But on top of that, man, like I had a futon for a bed. And you got to think you're there for 8 to 10 months. Right?
Yeah.
So, and it was like my television was probably about the size of a laptop screen. Right? And at that time, I played with that team for about 4 months. I left in February. I got bought out to Israel. I led that country in scoring. I led the world in 3-point percentage.
Wow.
Like the world, like the NBA, all that. Like I led.
That's crazy.
3-point percentage. And she didn't understand. She couldn't understand why I didn't want her to come over there. It was just bad. I had to walk in snow, you know what I'm saying? Like 2 feet of snow, socks wet, but going to the gym on my own to get extra work in, like, et cetera. Right. But all that stuff paid off because it propelled me to to where I am now. I'll probably say the best story, man, is probably seeing my parents in the stands, my parents and my daughter. Right. My parents first saw me playing Alba Berlin. I was playing Euro Cup. It's about like 16,000 fans there.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's huge.
So that was a dope experience. And then just having my daughter there, man, in the stands with my wife 2 years ago when she was born. She's been traveling since she was 4 months old.
Wow.
So her passport
Cultured already.
It has so many stamps in it, man. It's ridiculous. But that was the best thing, seeing her in the stands, clapping and stuff like that, seeing how engaged she is. I'm actually gonna bring her out with me this weekend when they call me out. Because she turns 2 on Saturday.
Oh, happy early birthday.
Yeah. So she has her jerseys and stuff like that. So that's just dope, man. I love it.
Man, that gave me chills. You just talking about like her in the stands and like a Euro Cup environment, like something I haven't been a part of, but definitely want to be.
Yeah.
Like I heard it's crazy over there, especially during the Euro Cup, and like
I got
that's
so
the
many.
best of the
I have
best.
so many stories, man, about that. My wife does too, but nah, man, it's a lovely experience.
And going back to your time in Poland, I just want to like, I think I need to preface this because people might hear like, oh, you had a small TV, or, you know, you had a futon, you know, like, I think for people listening to this, I don't know how many people understand this, but I don't think a lot of people understand, like, you're like, don't know anybody over there except for your teammates. You don't know anything around you. There's no form of entertainment. You're on different time zones talking to people. Like,
Yeah.
So like you saying you have a small TV is like, that's your one form of entertainment that you're trying to find. It's like, you can't really even enjoy that. On top of that, you got no sink just in the bathroom. So you're having to leave the bathroom every time you go to the kitchen to wash your hands or do whatever, wash your face.
Or brush your teeth in the bathtub, you know what I'm saying, and wash your face and stuff like that. But
sure,
it was a challenge, man, but I embraced it.
Yeah, that's dope. And then the other question I would love to hear about your story is like, you know, being part of that first D-League draft. We've had this conversation more this year, but it's like the decision to go from D-League to overseas. You know, what was ultimately like your biggest reason why you did that? Because
money.
But like, you know, when did you know the right time was? I think this is a conversation we always have, because like D-League, you have more eyes on you. It's closer to home. You're playing stateside, but they're not making a lot of money. Like you said, they're making what, 30 to 40,000 at most. Not even that. Maybe not even at that time in the D-League.
No, not at that time. Nah, because I mean, I don't know what the numbers are now. To be honest,
Yeah.
I don't even. I'm so far away from it. I have no idea. But I know for me, it was like if I had a chance to do it all over again, I would go overseas first. I would build that foundation financially, and then also build the resume overseas. So when I do go back to, let's say, NBA Summer League, or if I do go to the D League, I don't really have any pressure on me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have money in the bank. I have a resume if this team doesn't like me, because you know how political it is. And I can just go there and just play freely, right? So if they cut me, all right, I'll see y'all later. I'm going back to where I'm. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, that's a good point.
That's the way that I look at it now. And I tell a lot of guys, I'm like, man, look, you got no top draft pick, don't waste your time. Like, it's only a select few that are going to get that opportunity to play. But when you look at the height of social media and everything, man, you have so much pressure on you, especially when you're considered a top tier athlete and you get cut.
Yeah,
a lot of guys don't know how to respond to that.
Mm-hmm.
My first time getting cut was when I got drafted in the D League. I didn't know how to respond to that. My mom had to calm me down. I never got cut before. So It was like, that could have broke me right there, but it lit another fire under me. And, you know, this is where I am today. So a lot of those guys, man, go overseas, man, and just get some money and learn the game more as well, because I learned so much more about the game when I was overseas, that now when I'm playing, it's so much slower now.
Man.
It's so much slower. So, but everybody's situation is different. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I don't really want guys to be like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna make sure I just go overseas. You may have a chance to, you know what I'm saying, with that G League team or whatever, to have an NBA shot. You know what I'm saying? Me, I just felt like I was beating a dead horse.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And like with Ignite, you know, I guess it's a little bit different with the Ignite team because they're getting paid so much money. But even the guys that are coming out of Ignite, like you said, there's a select few, 3 or 4 guys that are getting drafted, getting an Exhibit 10 contract or a training camp contract. And then what? You know, you go back to the G League, you go back to making a lot less money. You go from the salary of $500K to $35K or whatever it is. So
that's what I'm saying. And you can get that overseas in a month.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting conversation talking about that more this year because of guys who have played overseas more. But
yeah,
it feels like it would just be such a hard decision outside of money. It's like, but you're right there on the doorstep, right? So it's like
you can see it, right? Like,
yeah, that's
right there.
Yeah,
but it's so far away, man. Like, and it's all about timing. It's all about timing. Even with this draft, with me getting drafted with the BIG3, it was the timing. If my team season didn't end, probably wouldn't have got drafted, right? Like, it's timing. That's all it's about.
Good point. So we bring all this up because you just released a new book called Adjusting, Adapting, and Managing Expectations of Overseas Basketball. I'm sure a lot of the stuff that we just talked about, you probably are just reiterating or paraphrasing from things out of your book, experience-wise. What can our listeners and maybe even readers who watch this or listen to this expect to grab from your book or understand from your book? I guess I should say learn from your book.
Yeah, I mean, here's the book right here. You know, it's been a long time coming. I wanted to, you know, to write this. I'll send you the link as well. I mean, I guess you could post it on your page.
For sure.
The object of this book, man, is just to give guys a heads up on what to expect, right? And when I say that, it's the things that I've experienced, things that I've witnessed through other players from talking. And I just don't want them to make the same mistakes that I made. I wish I had a book like this when I first went overseas, because just for starters, a first year player going overseas doesn't even know how to pack, right? Like, I guarantee you, a rookie, his bags will be overweight, and you're going to pay about $200-300 in baggage fees, right? But in actuality, you don't have to. They have so much stuff overseas, man. Like, I buy more clothes overseas than I do in the States. You can literally get on a plane with your basketball shoes, because, you know, you may have your special preference. And then once you get over there, you'll figure out all the other resources that are there for you. You didn't really need them. You can really just get on the plane.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's just for starters, but it's just, you know, how to handle your taxes, how to adapt to the culture, you know what I'm saying, your teammates and everything, because it's all different. You have a language barrier. Some teams coaches may not speak English, so you have a translator, or you got to depend on the teammate to be your translator. I'm just trying to show you how to move around there, man, so you don't bump your head. You know what I'm saying? Like, I bumped my head a few times. I've seen other guys do it as well. I don't want y'all to do that. You know what I'm saying? So that's the primary purpose of this book. And if it reaches one person, I've done my job.
Yeah. Hell, I mean, one, that's dope. Two, I think my wife and I just came back from overseas, and we probably could have used that book from the packing perspective.
Where did you go?
We just went to Italy. So we went to Rome and Florence, and then we went to Nice, France. But
I played in Florence.
Okay. So you understand that all the cobblestone over there is not an ideal place to have a very large suitcase.
You'll break your wheel.
Suitcases.
Yeah, you'll break your wheel.
Oh yeah. I did 2 wheels. So yeah, I could have utilized your book. And like you said, you buy more stuff overseas, whether you're a traveler or a hooper or whatever the case might be. So we definitely could have used that book. But that being said, where can people find your book? I know you said you'll send the link, so I'll definitely post that below.
Yeah,
YouTube comments, as well as on Instagram and Twitter.
The book is on Amazon right now. It should be on my website soon. I'll send all that stuff to you. And that's pretty much it right now. After a while, probably try to go around and try to speak to a couple universities and stuff like that, if I can. Because, like, when you're playing overseas basketball, man, you got to understand that a lot of the most successful athletes are going to come from mid-major Division I down, right? Because they're already experiencing that grind, and you know what I'm saying, like that grit. Not saying like the high Division I's don't really experience it, but a lot of stuff is handed to them. In those other situations, like, you got to go snatch it. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And when they go over there, it's kind of like a shock to them, because they don't have a shoe room. They don't have, you know what I'm saying, this and that. Like, all those teams don't have those type of resources and stuff like that. There's a handful. So, yeah, man, it's on Amazon. It's going to be on my website and stuff. Once when I get all this stuff completed, I will let you know. And everybody can go from there.
Yep. Dope. And that'll all be listed in the comments below, so you guys can definitely check that out. Dominique Johnson's new book. Let me make sure I said this clearly and not out of order. Adjusting, Adapting, and Managing Expectations Overseas Basketball. Make sure you guys check that out. Dom, I appreciate your time. I know you have a dinner to catch, but I appreciate your time. Best of luck to you again on Saturday against Three's Company in a crucial game. And best of luck to you on the rest of the year. Hopefully it's not a one and done situation. You guys are playing in the playoffs in Tampa and Atlanta.
Yeah, Tampa and Atlanta, man, those are the goals.
Yeah. So best of luck, and thanks again for joining the show.
All right, man. See you.
All right, that was our interview with Dominique Johnson. Thank you again, Dom, for coming on right before your big game against Three's Company. And as you say, it kind of a win or must go home every week for you guys at this point. This is the playoffs, like we have been mentioning. So appreciate your time, and thank you to everyone who tuned into this episode and that interview. Hope you enjoyed. Again, make sure you guys are following on social media at Fourth Man Pod, tuning in on YouTube and subscribing over there, ringing the notification bell for all new episodes. Going to be really trying to get as many guys that we can that are in the playoff hunt or in the playoffs to come on the show, as well as update you guys on what's going on as things continue to escalate and evolve and carry on throughout these playoffs. This should be the best one yet. I was actually just looking at tickets not too long ago and thought I had 4 courtside seats for $25. I think it was just a glitch in the Ticketmaster system. They're about $1,000. So don't know if I'm going to pay that, but the goal is, again, to be at the game, trying to bring some of the friends there. And you guys definitely should too. Make sure they're tuning into the Big Three and this great product with these great players in this league. I think people will be surprised at the talent level and excitement that's here. So, this is not me on behalf of the Big Three advocating. This is just on my own behalf for the love of the league and the love for the guys that are hooping in this league, to say, bring some people out. The tickets really aren't that expensive. It's a championship game. I don't remember, I'm not saying drop $1,000 or $250 on this game. If you want, you can to sit courtside or maybe next to Ice Cube. But I'm just saying $25 go to the championship game in a really nice arena like State Farm. Like, you can't beat those prices. So thanks again to everyone who tuned in. Hope you enjoyed the interview and hope you enjoy week 7 of the Big Three. See you guys.